Hello everyone. If you've been following this series from the very beginning, welcome back. If this is your first time here, you might want to know that this is the final installment in a 4-part series on the chorale settings of Johann Sebastian Bach. You'll find the other 3 videos on my YouTube channel, and I'll provide a link in the video description. This week, we're going to examine the chorale Ach wie flüchtig, ach wie nichtig. In comparison with the other chorales that we've looked at so far, this one might appear at first glance to be by far the most straightforward and simple, but in reality, it's quite a lot more complex than it appears to be. The melody and words were written by the Lutheran poet and composer Michael Frank in 1652. The piece was later adapted by the hymn composer Johann Krüger. Bach used it as the theme of his cantata of the same name, which was composed in 1724, and that is where this chorale appears. The poem is a memento mori, a reminder of the impermanence of all things. But after assailing the reader with an exhaustive list of all that will fall and perish, the poem ends on a hopeful note with the statement that all those who fear God will remain forever standing. The original text consists of 13 stanzas of 6 lines each. Bach uses the first and the final stanzas in his setting. So now let's have a look at the original German text, followed by an English translation. Ach, wie flüchtig, ach, wie nichtig ist der Menschenleben. Wie ein Nebel bald entsteht und auch wieder bald vergeht, so ist unser Leben, seht. Ach, wie flüchtig, ach, wie nichtig sind der Menschen Sachen. Alles, was wir sehen, das muss fallen und vergehen. Wer Gott fürcht, bleibt ewig stehen. Ach, how fleeting, ach, how insubstantial is a man's life. As a mist soon arises, and soon also vanishes again, so is our life, see. Ach, how fleeting, ach, how insubstantial are mankind's affairs. All that we see must fall and vanish. Whoever fears God remains ever standing. This poem contains some interesting literary features. You'll have noticed that every stanza begins with the same phrase, ach wie flüchtig, ach wie nichtig. The German adjective nichtig is a little bit difficult to translate directly, but it corresponds more or less to null or worthless. The poem also contains an interesting anagram. The words Leben, life, and Nebel, or mist, appear in close proximity to one another. Whether or not that's intentional, I have no idea, but I find it to be an interesting feature nevertheless. So now I'm going to play the melody as adapted by Krüger, followed by Bach's 4-part harmonization. This was actually the first Bach chorale that I ever studied, so I have a personal connection with this piece that dates back more than 30 years. And from the very beginning, I was struck by the purity of the voice leading, the simple fanfare-like harmonies, the elegance of Bach's chord spacing, and also the beauty of the bass line, which adds some rhythmic vitality to a melody that is otherwise exceptionally dull with its dirge-like succession of quarter notes. So the chorale has a number of interesting features that we'll look at now. One of them is that it contains a rare instance of parallel fifths in Bach. Okay, so not exactly technically parallel fifths. Bach fudges it somewhat by using a suspension, but nevertheless, it's very close. So let's have a look at the soprano and the tenor in bar 4. The closing phrase also contains 4 suspensions in a row at the words Menschen, Leben, the lives of men, this chain of dissonances serving as a reminder of the corruptible and impermanent nature of mankind. Now I want you to also look at the soprano and alto in this final cadence. Now normally when you have a leading tone, it must be resolved upwards to the tonic in the same voice. You notice here, however, that Bach resolves the G sharp upwards in the soprano rather than in the alto, and has the alto move downwards to G. This is totally permissible in this style, and it's not disturbing to the ear in the slightest because the G sharp resolves upwards in the same octave, even if it's not in the same voice. So the second phrase is interesting because it appears to begin in A major, which keeps with the tonality of the preceding cadence. However, it eventually turns out that this A major triad is in fact a dominant of D, initially D minor, as we can see by this B flat. But the phrase ultimately ends in D major. This phrase also contains some nice contrapuntal textures that liven up the rather stiff melody. So for example, in bars 4 to 8, Bach has the bass and the alto trade off of each other with this flowing 8th note rhythm that is passed back and forth between the two voices. Let's listen. While this piece is in A minor, Bach pivots to major at the end of every phrase with a Picardy third. In fact, all of the cadences in this piece are in major, which may be Bach's way of tempering the rather pessimistic tone of the poem. In keeping with what we've seen in the 3 previous videos in this series, Bach, of course, is unable by temperament to harmonize the same melodic fragment the same way twice. And that's exactly what happens here. There's a little phrase at the end of the piece that he initially harmonizes in the following manner with this bass line. In the final phrase of the piece, he transforms the harmony in this passage by raising the bass from a D to a D sharp. This takes a rather pedestrian bit of harmony and makes it more interesting by introducing a secondary dominant. So let's listen to these last 2 bars and pay attention to the harmonic effect that that creates. Bach always strives to make his bass lines as interesting as possible, and this little closing phrase here that we just heard is interesting in this regard because it actually contains 2 melodic tritones almost in a row in the bass line. Let's listen. And let's hear the complete 4-part harmonization. If you enjoyed this video, don't miss the other 3 in this series. And as always, a reminder that I offer Zoom composition and analysis lessons. If you're interested, you'll find details in the video description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.